What is up, my fellow andronauts? How many of you guys are consuming spinach and beets to maximize your testosterone or just exercise performance in general? But I'm here to tell you that a anti-nutrient that's very rich in spinach and beets can actually start to lower your testosterone. It's called oxalates. So oxalates is an anti-nutrient that binds to various minerals in the body like calcium, magnesium, and iron. But it can accumulate in organs where you do not want it to accumulate, start to cause issues and lower your testosterone. Let me show you. There are a couple of case studies where they have done biopsies and found oxalate crystals in the testes of certain individuals. You can see these crystals are accumulating in the testes where they then induce damage, and that can inhibit fertility and also start to lower your testosterone. Oxalate crystals can accumulate, and you might be saying like, okay, well, this is probably not coming from the diet. These guys were unhealthy, and yes, they were unhealthy, but it's still oxalates. And oxalates in high doses can make you unhealthy, but I'll get to that in a second. The testis is one organ where oxalates can accumulate. The other organ is the thyroid. And they have found that the older the individual gets, the higher percentage of them have oxalate crystals. So when someone is under the age of 10, they have zero oxalate crystals in the thyroid. Someone between 10 and 29 year or males, about 33% of males between the age of 10 and 29 had oxalate crystals in their thyroid. 73% between the age of 30 and 49 has oxalate crystals. And then it's over 80% of people over 50 and up have oxalate crystals, which is pretty crazy. Like even young individuals that's in their 20s can start to accumulate oxalate crystals in their thyroid, where it induces oxidative stress, damage, mitochondrial damage and whatnot, that starts to lower your thyroid function. So now you end up with lower testosterone, infertility, poor thyroid function, achy joints even, because it can also accumulate in your joints. And it's only going to get worse from there. This is some of the toxic effects of oxalates. It induces inflammation by upregulating a bunch of inflammatory processes. It enhances excessive autophagy. In one of my previous videos, I talked about how autophagy is very beneficial for the testes to produce testosterone, but excessive autophagy will break down all of the Leydig cells, so you can't even produce testosterone because everything is just being broken down. It stimulates excessive autophagy. It causes cellular senescence, so the cell just becomes like docile and almost like dead. It induces renal remodulating, which is fibrosis and damage to the kidney. And the kidney is the main organ that excretes oxalates. If you have kidney damage, people with poor kidney function, they tend to accumulate oxalates much more than people with a healthy kidney. But if you eat, the more oxalates you consume, those oxalates can start to damage the kidney. You actually excrete less oxalate, you start to accumulate it more. You're damaging your kidney by consuming too many oxalates. There's obviously a big individual difference. Not everyone will get the same detriments. Some people might get away with it. It's kind of like someone that's smoking for 50 years and never get lung cancer. Everyone is slightly different. It also induces oxidative stress, causes mitochondrial dysfunction. This is really key because the first step of steroidogenesis, which is the conversion of cholesterol into pregnenolone, happens in the mitochondria. And then oxalates also causes endoplasmic reticulum stress, which is also really important because pregnenolone is converted into testosterone in the endoplasmic reticulum. So if you have damage in the mitochondria and the endoplasmic reticulum, every single step of steroidogenesis is being inhibited, causing oxidative stress, inflammation, excessive autophagy. Is really not a good way to maximize your testosterone. It's a very good way to minimize your testosterone by causing testicular damage. You do not want to start accumulating oxalate crystals in your testes, and just the best way to do it is just to stop eating that. So here's a nice big list of high oxalate foods. So let's look at the foods that's really high. We have buckwheat flour, we have wheat germ, rhubarb, almonds, cashews, hazelnuts, soy nuts, snap beans, asparagus, broccoli, cauliflower, celery, amaranth leaves, beet leaves, Brussels sprouts, chives, collards, parsley, purslane, spinach, watercress, beetroot, cassava root, even carrot, radish, sweet potato, turnips, garlic, black pepper, cacao powder, soy protein, soybean crackers, tofu. So there's actually quite a foods that a lot of people consume. And even these foods that's not very high, the more you eat of them, in mixed amounts, those oxalates add up. I think a big mistake is that a lot of people, they want to be healthy, and instead of eating potatoes or rice, they go to sweet potato, but then they consume a massive amount of oxalates from the sweet potato. And that can eventually cause issues in your kidney and also the testes and the thyroid. The whole point here is that if you want to minimize oxalate exposure, you want to eliminate all of these foods that contains over at least 200 milligrams per 100 gram of oxalates. So that would be almost all leafy greens. Spices are fine because the quantities that you're consuming of them is really small. But if you really want to minimize oxalate consumption, you can just like eliminate all plant foods, and or at least have the ones in that's just extremely low in oxalates. So that would be, for example, cucumber, okra, eggplant, squash, tomato, long beans, cow beans, garbanzo beans, lima beans, papaya, blackberries, blueberries, raspberries, grapes, currants, and so on. Just go through this list, select the high oxalate foods, and just eliminate those from your diet. Then you also want to make sure that if you are still consuming oxalates, consume foods high in calcium, magnesium, and iron. Calcium and magnesium, that would be, for example, dairy, because the calcium and whatnot binds to the oxalates so that you're not absorbing it into the body. It makes a calcium oxalate crystal in the intestine, just poop it out, so it's not even being absorbed into the body. So that's one way to help to minimize the exposure. And then also you can supplement with vitamin B6 because it helps to deactivate glyoxylate. And glyoxylate is the precursor to oxalates. And I will discuss where this glyoxylate is coming from. But this enzyme, AGT, that converts glyoxylate into glycine requires vitamin B6. Avoid excess vitamin C. Vitamin C is a direct precursor, ascorbate, for glyoxylate. So a lot of people, when they supplement way too much vitamin C, can actually start to accumulate oxalate crystals as well and cause kidney damage. But that's not everyone, of course. Like some people are just more sensitive to it. And then avoid collagen. Glycine and hydroxyproline, they are both precursors to glyoxylate. Now your body can deactivate glyoxylate, as I mentioned, back into glycine with the help of vitamin B6. But if someone is sensitive to collagen, because there are people that get side effects from collagen supplementation, it's best for them to avoid it, as it can actually convert into glyoxylate and oxalates. And being generally unhealthy can also increase glyoxylate. So protein glycation, carbohydrate oxidation, lipid peroxidation, consuming too much polyunsaturated fats, all of which increase glyoxyl, which then converts into oxalates. So generally being unhealthy will also increase the oxalate production in the body. And lastly, the microbiome can deactivate it. So there's certain lactobacilli and bifidobacteria, another strain that's very specific to breaking down oxalates. So if someone is healthy, they didn't, for example, they haven't used antibiotics yet, they might still have some of those bacteria that will then break down the oxalates. They will tolerate high oxalate foods much better because they can already deactivate it. And then you can also have dairy with it. The calcium will bind to the oxalates and decrease the absorption thereof. If you're truly interested in maximizing your testosterone, but you're at a not really good spot at the moment, just perhaps cut out all vegetables. But if you do want to have vegetables, just select the low oxalate ones, and then your body can eventually start to remove those calcium oxalate, those oxalate crystals from the testes and the thyroid, and then over time your testosterone production will pick up. And if you want to maximize your testosterone fast with the right diet, lifestyle, and supplements, get the Testo Beast program. Link is in the description below if you want to fast track your progress and become a Testo Beast. Alright guys, I hope you learned something new, and I will check you in the next one. Cheers guys.